Hello, hello, hello. How we all doing? Hope you guys are doing well, having a good weekend. Cthulhu, and welcome to SCP Book Club. This is a series where we take SCP articles and read them, dissect them, discuss them. For those unfamiliar, SCP is a collaborative writing project centered around a shadowy sort of Men in Black-esque organization called the SCP Foundation, which locates, contains, and researches anomalous phenomena. In this case, we are going to be discussing one of the many other groups focused around anomalies within the SCP universe, where the SCP Foundation prefers containment and confinement and trying to preserve normalcy. There are many other groups with many different MOs. There are some who would seek to destroy the anomalous, like the UN's Global Occult Coalition, who see no value in keeping harmful anomalies alive, unlike the Foundation. There are some who wish to exploit anomalies for profit, like Marshall Carter and Dark, who sell anomalies to the highest bidder. And of course, there are some who worship anomalies, like today's group of interest, the Church of the Broken God. So let's begin. First, we're going to go to the Church of the Broken God hub here, which I did not assign as part of our reading, but it'll give us some valuable insight. Church of the Broken God, 3 known factions, 300,000 members approximately. The Church of the Broken God is an anomalous religious organization which worships mechanization and believes flesh and life to be inherently evil or broken. Though its origins are unknown, Broken God-related artifacts have been recovered from archaeological digs dating back to the Greek classical period, and church dogma asserts its existence predates the appearance of life on Earth. Central to their theology is that their deity has been scattered, dispersed, or otherwise rendered inert. Through the use of technology, often anomalous, church followers seek to bring together the components of the body of God, thereby allowing the divine a physical form to utilize, and bringing about some sort of techno-organic apotheosis. Now, an apotheosis, for those unfamiliar, is the highest point in the development of something, culmination or climax. Basically, also the elevation of someone to divine status. Basically, the Church of the Broken God hopes that by reuniting the pieces of their god, their mechanical god they worship, whose name fittingly is Mechan, they hope by taking these scattered pieces and reuniting them, they can elevate all of humanity to godhood in some fashion. Several SCP objects have been attributed to this group since its discovery, and then they get into details about there being 3 specific factions of the Church of the Broken God, all of which disagree about how church dogma should be interpreted. The current leader of the oldest extant denomination of the Broken Church is an individual identified in records as His Holiness Robert Bumaro, Builder of the Broken God, who apparently gained the title in 1946. And then there's a footnote. Spanish nationalist records from 1938 mention a civilian mechanic by the name of Humberto Bumaro, who received several governmental citations for, quote, miraculous feats of engineering and mechanical repair in service to the state, end quote. Whether or not this is the same individual and his whereabouts during the Second World War is unknown. While this sect continues its efforts to reconstruct their deity, the religion as a whole has at some time in the past century undergone a major schism. 2 significant breakaway movements from the original church have entered into major theological conflict. So you have the original church and these 2 other movements, similar to, the difference between Catholicism and Orthodoxy, or Protestantism and Catholicism, those sort of schisms. The Cogwork Orthodox Church espouses a form of literal religious iconography known as standardization, whereby adherents submit to anomalous mechanical enhancement with the stated goal of remaking themselves in the image or plan of their deity. Hang on real quick. I am cold. I'm going to grab a sweater. Give me just a moment. Okay. I'll put it on. I'll keep it. Due to the extent of their mechanical augmentation, members of this sect have often... let me start over. Due to the extent of their mechanical augmentation, members of this sect often emit audible ticking or tapping sounds, and have been referred to disparagingly as tickers by members of the other two sects. Cogwork orthodoxy deliberately adheres to the technological norms of the late Industrial Revolution, and regard the mass production of analog, steam, and clockwork-driven machinery as a form of prayer. Orthodoxy doctrine is highly centralized and regulated by a group of unknown composition known as the Patriarchs. This body issues detailed production orders and design documents which form the core of this group's extremely extensive Holy Writ. Orthodox belief decries the use of electronic or digital devices and views distributed information sharing and decentralization as tantamount to the dissolution of divine knowledge. So, where the original church was all about reconstructing their deity and giving it the divine a physical form and undergoing some sort of apotheosis, the Orthodox Church is less focused on reconstructing the god and more focused on reshaping themselves in the image of their god. So using anomalies related to mechanics and clockwork and machinery to alter themselves, make themselves what they believe to be closer to God. And the final schism is the Church of Maxwellism. Represents a modernized computation and network-oriented means of worship. No central organizing church body is known to exist. However, interviews and covert surveillance has determined that all known cells are in regular contact with one another and capable of coordination. Maxwellists favor small-scale body modification through the use of advanced cybernetics and organ enhancement. While artificial limbs or reinforced skeletons have been observed, Maxwellist implants focus primarily on communication, data storage, networking capabilities, and sensory enhancement. Maxwellist doctrine interprets the broken god as a fragmented deity, which exists as disparate data present in the linked technology and cultural zeitgeist of the digital age. Zeitgeist, for those who don't know, basically means the defining spirit or mood of a particular period. So they believe the broken god is fragmented and exists as data scattered throughout culture, that it is able to be located within our culture, but only in fragments. Worshippers approach the divine by embracing their unique traits and sharing their knowledge and capacity for the good of the collective church. By connecting all minds through computer networks, they believe their deity can be recompiled as the aggregate will of humanity. Due to their use of computer fan noise as a meditative aid, members are often referred to as hummers by members of the other two factions. So you have three sects. The original broken church, which is focused on reconstructing their deity physically, taking pieces of it, of these anomalous artifacts, and pushing them back together to reform Meccan. The the Orthodox Church? Hang on. The Cogwork Orthodox Church is focused on augmenting yourself using a lot of steam power and clockwork, and focusing in on industrial revolution era technology. Finally, the Church of Maxwellism is focused on modernization, the digital age, communication, being, uniting all information to bring about the reconstruction of their god in a digital sense. And that's the basics of these three sects. So what we have is a church that worships technology in many different forms. And the thing that unites all of these sects is the belief that their god, Meccan, basically, let me see if I can flip down. I think this might. No, it does not. That's okay. Basically, they believe that there is a deity named Meccan who, similar to, I believe, deism and a couple other real-world belief systems, created everything as some sort of grand machine, but in protecting humanity was fractured, broken into pieces. And the other thing that unites all of these sects is the belief that technological augmentation is the way to go, and that flesh or standard physical forms are flawed. Now, from there, we can lead right into the SCPs that I assigned for this week. First, SCP-217, the Clockwork Virus, which is a virus incurable by current means, with a rate of infectivity at 100%. It can infect all organisms, all animals, and can be spread via touch or contact with body fluid. Alters the biochemistry of organic tissue, causing organic matter to rearrange into a form of organic metal. The processes involved in this change are not fully understood. A subject will turn into a complex arrangement of gears and clockwork, these taking over for the former biological functions. Hearts are replaced by gears and small tubes, joints by gear networks, eyes by structures not unlike primitive hand crank film cameras, etc. SCP-217 has been shown to totally convert the inside of the human body before showing any externally visible symptoms. Basically, it is a virus that infects 100% of the time, takes several years to manifest, but once it does, it converts living organisms into machines. Painfully. Initial infection Initial infection of 217 is, as has already been stated, almost undetectable. As the infection advances, subjects will begin to feel sharp, tearing pain in areas that are being converted. It has been compared to a knife wound or a deep muscle tear. Areas infected appear to be metal, mainly brass, steel, and iron. Other substances have been reported appearing to be leather, rubber, glass, wood, and other basic materials. Despite appearances, it is purely organic material, and even carries the subject's DNA. Areas damaged repair over time, but is much slower than standard human regeneration. Damaged areas can be instantly repaired by replacing damaged areas with new parts of the same type. Testing has shown that there are no ill effects if parts made from normal materials, steel, wood, leather, replace the existing biomechanical clockworks. Most alarming, people infected with SCP-217 can continue for months, even years, without being detected. With infection so easy to spread, hundreds could be affected before proper containment could be enforced. Infection appears to spread most quickly in large offices, malls, and other large concentrations of people. Note, anything or anyone suspected or confirmed to be infected with 217 is not to be allowed anywhere near SCP-882, which we'll get to shortly. But you can see why this virus would be useful to members of the Church of the Broken God. I believe in some stories they willingly infect themselves with it because, well, if they believe flesh to be flawed or impure, why not infect yourself with a virus that converts you into a biomechanical entity? It seems perfect for them. Now, of course, when it starts to affect people who are not part of the Broken Church, things get dicey, but they don't seem to care that much because they think, presumably, they're helping people by turning them into machines. Next, there's SCP-271, which is another Keter class. It's sort of a running theme. A lot of Broken Church anomalies are fun. Very difficult to contain. In this case, the containment procedures are 271 is to be stored as long as possible on a meter-high stone pedestal, which will be flooded with water and sealed off in a hollow 5-centimeter thick sphere composed of glass saturated with iron. Magnets will hold it up in air and repel unwanted intruders. The room will be lined with carbon to contain the magnetic field. The door is to be left unguarded and disguised as a janitorial closet and kept locked by an unobtrusive password box mounted in the wall down the hallway and around the corner that appears to be a thermostat. Change the password on a monthly basis. All study is to be observation only until further notice. Yeah. It's a small disk, has a bunch of symbols on it. These symbols are infectious to their environment. They are capable of escaping through any hole, however minute. Objects that carry the symbols for a sufficient time begin to be changed on a molecular level to the same material as the SCP. Both the engraving and petrification processes are extremely painful to biotic organisms. The only known method for purging the symbols is the destruction of the object, and it is not possible to do this to 271 itself. Of course, you guessed it, this disk is made of something metallic. So it slowly turns things into metal and spreads these symbols, and those symbols begin to spread elsewhere. At this time, both 271 and the pedestal are thoroughly coated with the engraved symbols and seem to swim slightly. Dr. VG and other observers have described them as looking, quote, like the far side of a heat wave or not quite all there. The symbols also appear to have fractalized somewhat. Studies with vision-enhancing equipment have revealed miniature symbols inside and around the larger carvings on both objects. 271 was previously unknown SCP, recently acquired from a shrine belonging to the Church of the Broken God by Mobile Arm Task Force 12. It was previously stored in a room of its own, which documents note was to be kept sealed, quote, until the assembly was ready, end quote, which seems to be a big alarm bell that implies that this thing was going to be a key component of the reconstructed Broken God. The platform is original. However, due to the rapid retaliation of enemy forces, the remnants of Mobile Armed Task Force 12 were forced to data expunged. Contact has been reestablished, but the nature of the SCP and the enemy seekers prevent easy recovery, and it is currently considered more advisable for the SCP to remain hidden, if comparatively unprotected, than to attract attention by launching a very expensive recovery mission. SCP-271 is not to be brought into the presence of SCP-882. Again, hold that thought. Reports from other embedded sources indicate that as of blank, the Church is aware of this new task force and the location of 271, and is planning an imminent assault against the unit. SCP-271 is to be kept out of enemy hands at all costs. Containment Unit 12 has been ordered to mobilize and prepare for evacuation. Is it Containment Unit? CU? What does CU stand for? Containment Unit, yes. Okay. And prepare for evacuation. A recovery team is being prepared for immediate deployment under the direction of Agent DuPont. More detailed report is to follow. But of course, this being SCP, there is no detailed report. We don't know what's happened. But so far, we have a virus that turns people into machines, and a stone disk with symbols that spread to their environment and convert whatever they appear on into the same material as the disk. And now, the long-awaited SCP-882. Euclid, a welcome change of pace, doesn't mean it's not dangerous, though. Oh, trust me. To be kept in a fluid environment consisting of no less than 40% seawater. If any part of it appears uncoated with rust, it must be immediately immersed in a 100% seawater solution. No metal may be placed in containment area, only organic materials are allowed, and any contact with 882 requires the use of thick cotton gloves. Any metal making contact with it is to be heat severed, melted down, and kept immersed in 100% seawater in a separate area. Appears to be a random assembly of gears, cables, pulleys, screws, and belts, all made of an amalgam of various metals. Object size at time of recovery was approximately 87 cubic meters. Current size is approximately 12 cubic meters, so they have managed to reduce the size considerably. It rusts quickly in seawater. No identifiable energy source has been found, but all components will begin to move, if not coated with rust. It is completely silent at all times. Any metal touching the object will become permanently affixed to it, and over a period of a few days becomes a new part of the object. Organic matter remains unaffected. SCP-882 is extremely resilient, with tensile strength and toughness above those of aircraft-grade titanium alloy by weight, even though its composition appears to be a random alloy of iron, tin, gold, and other metals. Extreme focused heat must be applied over several hours to cut even a small portion free of the main assembly. Persons remaining in the vicinity of the object for prolonged periods have developed auditory hallucinations while near the object, mainly the sound of grinding and clicking. The sound intensifies and is abated only by throwing metal into the object. Subjects in advanced states of psychosis have thrown themselves into the object, resulting in almost instant death by crushing. The object is often drawn in and impossible to recover. It was recovered from a location at the northeast coast of Banks Island. Area was barren of all metal and metallic ore in a 1-mile radius. 882 was found at the geometric center of the area. It had become submerged in seawater at the time of discovery. SCP-882 was removed and shortly started to flake off rust, causing the varied parts to begin motion. After several accidents, Dr. Gears authorized this SCP, don't worry about it, basically music that when played causes machinery in its vicinity to slow down in efficiency. To be played on loop, which successfully reduced the object's motion, enabling safe access. 882 is then cut down and contained on site. And then, of course, they refer back to these two we just read. It is not to be brought into the vicinity of 271 or any subject possibly contaminated by 217. Now, as you understand, for obvious reasons, it cannot be brought into the vicinity, because if it was brought into the vicinity of 271, it could become contaminated with those symbols, start converting its environment into more of that metal, and just spread exponentially. If it was brought into the vicinity of a subject contaminated by 217, the clockwork virus, we might have a living version of this anomaly on our hands. There's also an interview log, which I will go over briefly. Basically, they interviewed Richard Wright, the survivor from a small community. One of his friends wrecked his boat on the object. They found it. They thought they were going to sell it for scrap. It started spinning. Alan seemed kind of off. Miss Parker thought part of it was gold. Tried to jam part of it with a pipe. The pipe stuck fast. After that, people mostly kept away. It was so damn quiet. Alan was keeping it in an old storeroom, so he couldn't sleep much. Father Pat started dropping by, tried to talk to him, told him to get rid of it. He was gone for a couple days, then suddenly the two of them turn up together, happy as clams. Say they got the thing figured out. I wasn't paying that much attention. This whole thing had me spooked. Anyway, they said some damn thing about it being from somewhere else, that God made it. That was it for me, and I left. That this damn machine kept spinning too, no power to it. More people started getting interested and started listening to Alan and Father Pat, told everyone to bring metal to it. Told them the gears were the voice of God, that it grew louder as we turned away and softer as we brought it offerings. He starts getting really upset. He talks about how he brought metal to it just to sleep. Father Pat started getting strange, telling us it wasn't enough. I think the noise was getting to him, said it needed something more meaningful. Came in one night, Father Pat was leading a prayer to this thing, but it didn't sound like any prayer I knew. People were coming up, and he bent over them, they screamed, and then he turned to that big mass of metal. I thought he was giving communion until I saw the pliers in his hand. He was yanking out people's fillings. He was pulling out their fucking teeth and feeding them to that thing. He started screaming about it not being enough. Then he pointed at Alan. He said he was hiding metal from the great machine. Father Pat said he had a metal joint in his hip. Everyone got up at once. Oh God, they grabbed him. Everyone just grabbed him. I saw his arm go in. I saw all his fingers break and pull the rest of his arm in, and I ran. That thing was screaming, and Alan was screaming, and Father Pat. And that's the end of the interview. So, the end result being, they found the object, they started feeding it metal, eventually started, when they ran out of metal, started pulling teeth, and eventually throwing each other into it, because they have pieces of metal in themselves. So yeah, this thing's kind of dangerous. I don't know if you noticed, the Church of the Broken God makes some dangerous things. The last one being SCP-1139. Basically, a large rectangular block, gray rectangular block, 20 centimeters high. It's not that large, actually. 20 centimeters high and 5 centimeters square at its base. Upon application of a direct current, the object affects all individuals within a given radius through unknown means. Any person within the radius of effect begins speaking and writing a new language. Subjects lose the ability to speak or comprehend any other prior known languages. Attempts at translation continue. Subjects have proven incapable of learning or relearning any real-world language after exposure to 1139. The radius of effect is exponentially proportional to the wattage applied to it, with a static shock creating a radius of 0.8 of a meter, and direct lightning strike estimated to create a radius reaching beyond blank. It was recovered when Mobile Task Force Delta 5 raided a Church of the Broken God outpost in Normal, Illinois. A basement containing an apparently demented and violent elderly man holding 1139. A basement contained, who was quickly terminated. In this room were over 1, 2, 3. So somewhere in the millions, handmade documents, including stone tablets over several thousand years old, and modern papers showing minimal wear. Note that the earliest documents predate the Church of the Broken God by over several thousands of years. The documents do not appear to be written in any known languages, and hundreds of different languages have been identified. And then, we find out in 1997, several tens of the adults and a couple of the children pulled weapons and tried to breach Research Area 39 to try to get this thing, the tongue or the voice. Then there's testing. Basically, we find out people just change their languages and don't even notice. They just sometimes will change midway through things. And the doctor working on this, we find out, also got obsessed with it. Dr. A exposed himself to 1139. It is notable that Dr. A spoke 8 languages fluently prior to the experiment. It appears that it now knows 8 new languages, and by pointing at different places on an unlabeled map of the world, each new language has been associated with the language he is trying to speak. Dr. A has been unable to communicate beyond nonverbal pantomime, and has since lapsed into inactivity and depression. So, essentially what we have here is a church that wants to reconstruct their god, and a bunch of artifacts that seem connected to this god. In particular, artifacts that convert things into metal, that make people go crazy and want to bring those things metal, and things that change people's languages seemingly into some sort of script used exclusively by the Church of the Broken God. Possibly the language spoken by the god? It's never made entirely clear. But what we do know is that the Church of the Broken God has a lot of resources at their disposal, and seemingly will stop at nothing to see Meccan reconstructed by any means necessary. Of course, the means are different depending on which sect is trying to reconstruct it, but they're resilient, and they're not intent to stop anytime soon. So, yeah, that's a very surface level introduction to the Church of the Broken God. There's a whole lot more. There is an SCP-001 article about the Broken God specifically. All sorts of other articles related to them, a bunch of tales. I just wanted to give kind of an introduction. So, yeah, that's gonna basically do it for today. And, yeah, thanks for watching. I will see you all later. I'm trying to figure out what article I want to do next. I probably won't figure it out quite yet, but I'll put it on the schedule, the stream schedule, when I get it posted. Which, by the way, if you want to be the first to see the stream schedule, you can join the Discord in the description. I also have links to my website, Strange Waves, to my Instagram, my Etsy, if you want to buy some custom little clay figures, like Pyramid Head over here. Yeah, I'll get the schedule posted soon. You can find all the articles we read today in the description, and you can also find the music. Oh, actually, I didn't put the music in the description. Hang on. Putting it in chat once again. Oh, it all got messed up. Okay, that's fine. It's in chat, though. You can see it. And with that, have a good rest.